to read them. First, a little statement. Okay. Statement is hereby made that adequate notice of this meeting was given by posting written notice prominently on the bulletin board of the Office of the Board of Education, 65 McCampbell Road, Homedale, New Jersey, and the district's website, and sent to the 4 district schools. The mailing and/or hand delivery of said notice to the designated newspapers as per Park Press Independent, the PLG, PSG, PSA, PTSO, SAB presidents, and student representatives to the board, filing with the clerk of Homedale Township, Homedale Police Headquarters, and Public Library. Meetings of the board are open to the public, and all members of the community should feel free to participate. There are 2 opportunities for the public to speak. The first is at the beginning of the meeting for agenda items only, and the second is at the end of the meeting for other items. Any individual desiring to speak shall give his or her name, address, and the group, if any, that is represented. The presentation shall be as brief as possible, but no more than 3 minutes per individual. There are certain matters that may be brought before the board that cannot be immediately addressed in public. Such matters may be referred by the board president to a board committee and/or to the supervisor for consideration and/or resolution. The board vests in its president and other presiding officers authority to terminate the remarks of any individual if he or she deems it in the best interest of those present to do so. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Urbanski,
Here.
Mrs. Zhang, Mr. Sokol,
Here.
Mr. Reddy,
Here.
Ms. Bramante. Here. Mr. Wall,
Here.
Mr. Hammer,
Here.
Dr. Kalor is not, and Mrs. Chisillo. I see. you. Yeah, all right, I saw you.
Can we please stand for the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's no presentations, no report of the student representatives to board, no report from the superintendent? No?
No, Madam President.
Okay. Questions or comments from the public on action items only? Okay. Can I have a motion on action items 1 through 7?
Motion.
Second.
Can I have a discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Urbanski,
Yes.
Mr. Sokol,
Abstain.
Mr. Reddy,
Yes.
Mrs. Bramante.
Yes.
Mr. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Hammer,
Yes.
and Mrs. Tisillo. Yes. Motion passes.
Okay. Is there any old business? Joe, you have your micro, no? Any new business anyone would like to speak about? Okay, now is the time for questions or comments from the public. Would any members of the public like to speak? Hi, please tell us your name and address.
Hi, everyone. So I'm a rising junior at the Academy of Allied Health and Science, and I'm here to talk about this year's proposed busing situation. You may notice I'm carrying a few things. My gym bag, my bag for the Homedale High School dance team, as well as my backpack, which is over 10 pounds on its own. Never mind any posters or projects I might have to bring into school on any given day. I'm concerned and a little bit confused about the plan for busing we've been given this year. Last year, I was picked up at my house at 6:22 a.m. with a couple of stops before me, and we then picked up 5 or 6 other people and managed to make it to school by 7 a.m., which is a half hour before school starts. That means my route, which was approximately half of the Homedale pickups, was completed in about 25 minutes. This year, the first centralized stop isn't until 6:42, which is about 25 minutes later than my route started last year. And I'd like to know why we can't provide door-to-door busing by starting the route earlier, because it seems like we should be able to pick everyone up in less than an hour. Right now, I would have to walk 1.3 miles to get to my assigned bus stop, and I would have to leave my house at about 6:10. During those 1.3 miles, I can expect darkness, possible rain, snow, or black ice, and cold temperatures. If I have to be ready by 6:10 to walk a half hour to my bus stop while facing everything I just listed and more, the bus can come to my house and I can spend that half hour safe on the bus while we pick up all the other allied students. I already know that some of the allied students are entitled to door-to-door busing because the roads they would have to walk on to their bus stop are hazardous, and other students are entitled to door-to-door busing because they're remote from their bus stops. If we're going to provide door-to-door busing for them, why not provide it for everyone? And assuming I make it to school, I have to face the trip home, and I have two choices. I can get off at my bus stop and walk a half hour, which gets me home at around 3:45, or I can get off at SATS and take the late bus home from the high school, which gets me home at around 5 p.m., which is 2.5 hours after my school ends. Unfortunately, neither of these options actually work for me because I wouldn't be able to participate in virtual after school activities for Allied. As a tutor and a member or leader of multiple clubs, there's an expectation of availability to meet after school beginning at 3:30 because that's when everyone should be home. Never mind if I have any appointments or I want to get an after school job. When I accepted a seat at Allied, my family and I knew that we would have to make some sacrifices. This is my third year being a member of the Homedale High School dance team, and that requires a parent to pick me up 2 to 3 times a week to drive to Homedale High School during football and basketball season. And I don't know why you would choose to burden us MCVSD kids more than we already are to still be a part of the Homedale School District. I don't know for sure, but I'm fairly certain that none of the in-district students are being asked to walk 1.3 miles to their bus stop, or 3.5 miles like one of my friends is, or 1 mile, or even half a mile. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you presenting your thoughts. Anyone else? Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Erica Roth, 20 Hawthorne Avenue. Good evening. I am also here to speak against the district's current proposed busing plan for the MCVSD students. I previously sent a letter to Laura Carducci, and I believe all of you were copied on it. I'm not going to repeat myself, but there are just some problems with the plan that I would like to address here tonight. The biggest issue is the illegality of the locations of the bus stops. They contravene provisions of both the administrative code and this district's regulation 8600 titled pupil transportation. There are several families from MCVSD who are remote from all of the bus stops. Some are 2.6, some are 3.5. Again, there are multiple families in this situation. Additionally, there are students who would be required to walk on roadways to their bus stops that this board has previously deemed to be hazardous. I have an OPRA request pending. I don't yet have a list of the roadways, but according to this board, busing would be necessary for those students. So I'm at a loss as to how transportation would think that this was a good plan for dozens of MCVSD students this year, and then wait until the last minute, so to speak, to let us know about it and just possibly think nobody was going to object. It does not take the safety of our students into account. And for these groups of students I mentioned with the legal issues, what is the solution? Are they going to get a second bus to bring them from their home to the bus stop? It just doesn't make sense. And then we have the rest of the students, like my student, not remote from the bus stop, not required to walk on hazardous roadways. But is this busing plan a good solution for them? No. You've heard about the realities for these students: multiple heavy bags, hazardous road conditions, inclement weather, and then being put in a position where they're going to miss typical after-school activities for high school students, such as work, internships, appointments, and after-school activities. According to Ms. Carducci, there is currently one bus contracted for each of the 5 MCVSD schools. And as I mentioned, it appears that at least some of the students will legally require busing from their homes to either the bus stop or to their schools. So if we take a step back for a minute, common sense dictates that door-to-door busing for all the students, like we've had in the past. This is my sixth year with the MCVSD schools. So this is the first time centralized stops in my experience has ever been proposed. But it seems to make sense that we just resume the door-to-door busing for the next school year. And there's two ways that can happen. Either we keep it at one bus per school and we have a longer route, but everybody is getting door-to-door busing. Or for the schools that need a second bus, and I don't believe they all do, we get a second bus. We get a smaller bus, we get a van, we get something else. 5 extra buses, maybe 1 extra bus, maybe 2 extra buses. I'm not really sure. Ms. Carducci has not been responsive to phone calls and emails. And then to the extent that there are budgetary concerns or continued problems securing additional buses due to shortages, I would suggest that the district remove non-necessary courtesy busing. I don't see why the same burdens that you are prepared to place on out-of-district students can also be placed on the in-district students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Please come up.
Hello, my name is Shane Straits. My daughter is a student at High Tech High School. She'll be going into the 11th grade, and I am here also to speak about the busing situation. I'm going to try and skip most of what I prepared because some other people covered that, so that's great. I guess the overwhelming thing that had me concerned is I encouraged my daughter to come today to speak, and she didn't want to. And she didn't want to because she didn't feel there was any point in it, because she didn't feel that there'd be any action. And that's the part that has me most upset now, because the other things I could probably work around. But our situation falls under the category of my daughter. We live over 2.5 miles from the nearest pickup spot. So I'm not sure of the legality of what's happened here. I can cite the, let's see, it's, if you want to hear it, it's New Jersey NJSA 18A 39-1. It just doesn't seem to meet the state law. Moreover, she would have to walk on one of the roadways that is unpaved. That'd be Homedale Road. In the winter, when that's icy or snowy or whatnot, I would not feel comfortable doing that. So under no circumstances would I allow that. But there again, I'm not sure it passes the legal muster. So I just want to vocalize hoping that there'd be some sort of way to address this with only 2 weeks. I did write Laura Carducci, as I know many others did. I will say she did respond to us, but at some point the correspondence stopped, even though I was continuing to offer other ways to resolve it or whatnot. So I won't take up any more time. I appreciate your time. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
My name is Peter Vaklovic. My daughter is Angelina Vaklovic. She is currently entering her junior year at MAST. This young lady probably give a pretty good example of what my daughter would have to go through, except for some reason my daughter seems to have twice as many books. But my daughter's closest stop is 2.7 miles away, and about a mile of it is does not have sidewalks. And even if it did have sidewalks, the days that it snows, there are no sidewalks. And she timed it. It would take 53 minutes without the backpacks to get to the stop. If it's not raining, snowing, she has to wait for traffic. And if she has school projects she's supposed to bring in, I'm not sure what the thought process is here. You know, my wife and I both work. I'm at work at 6:30. My wife works in the city. There's nobody to drive her to the bus stop in the morning, unless we hire a babysitter to come in at $20 an hour to get to my house. That's if they can get to my house, if it's snowing or whatnot, or if, you know, they don't have their own issues, and then drop her off at the bus stop. You know, if she takes 2.7 miles and she is delayed for whatever reason, and the bus leaves, now she gets to lug all that stuff back home. These kids have worked their butts off and they're being told it doesn't matter. You're in the wrong town. You know, we want to keep people in the schools, this particular school system, and it's not the right message. Now, my daughter couldn't be here because she had to do some stuff for SATs, but quite frankly, she had the same opinion. You know, they're kids. And right now, what they see does not instill confidence. You know, they don't feel like people are behind them. They're like, oh, what am I going to get next? You know, pretty much it. All right. And again, my wife and I work our butts off. We could probably afford to pay for someone to do it. Not everyone can. How many kids, if this continues, are going to have parents that say, you know what, you don't have this as an option because I can't get you to that school. They get the scores, they work their butts off, and then they're told, sorry, the town doesn't support you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak? Name and address, please.
My name is Suzanne Gastrich. I live at 2 Eastbrook Drive in Homedale, obviously. Actually, I tried to type something up, but I'm going to wing it a little bit. Anyway, as I said, I'm Suzanne Gastrich. I have a son that's entering his senior year at Mast. On behalf of my husband and I just wanted to express that I'm incredibly disappointed that our district feels that offering transportation within 3 miles of our home is not feasible. I recognize that last year was very difficult. As a matter of fact, my family, we had to pick up at Homedale High School for 8 months out of the year after school pickup. However, I feel that this is my personal impression, that because of what happened last year and other difficulties that are on the horizon, the township may not have in good faith put out the routes to bid in the manner that they did previously. Furthermore, I struggle with the party line that nobody bid on these routes. While the Mast route is not popular, and I appreciate that, and I know why, I find it hard to believe that the high-tech route, which is very similar to a lot of Homedale routes and is very close, that nobody actually bid on it. But nonetheless, my husband and I have owned a home in this township for 31 years. If you do the math, 31 years, I've paid several hundred thousands of dollars in property taxes. I have only one child. So that implies that a lot of my taxes has subsidized the needs of other kids in the township, which is fine. But right now I have a need just to get my kid to the school bus and home. It's a little bit of a hardship for me. I'm self-employed and I often leave the state to source goods. I also want to remind the board that over a decade ago, this board, although it's probably comprised of different people, made the decision to sell their fleet, what little fleet they had left, because it was a mixed, half subcontracted and half Homedale buses, to sell their fleet and rely exclusively on subcontracted busing. And the reason proposed, and I appreciate it, was that the subcontractors were plentiful and it was cheap. And so what the township did was went to an all subcontract fleet and they sold their equipment. And that resulted in a windfall of several $100,000 of selling this equipment to the same subcontractors that were coming around to pick up our kids. Obviously, the situation is different now. The routes are expensive. People don't want to bid. the economy changed and it's difficult. But the point is, a choice was made and we reaped the benefits of that choice. And now the choice is it might cost a little more or it's a little more difficult. But I firmly believe that the resolution to the problem should not be to deny services to people like myself that have been paying taxes in this township for like 31 years. You know, I only have a year left, but like I said, I have been a volunteer. I have served on the executive board of the elementary schools. My husband is a scout leader. Like, you know, we've paid forward. And it would be really nice if the township that I have lived in for the past 31 years could make some good faith attempt to get some transportation. And if it's not possible, it's not possible, but I don't have good feelings that all the alternatives were researched and tried. Like I said, some routes are harder to bid than others, but it's hard for me to believe that nobody wanted to bid any of the routes, especially high tech, because of its profile. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak?
Yeah, I would suggest that
Name and address, please.
I would suggest that the different transportation really should look. I know we are facing difficulties. The entire country is facing labor shortage. But look at how other townships are doing. To my knowledge, there is a town called Allentown in Monmouth County. That's really far. It's in the corner. I think they're much closer to Princeton than here. And they only have 4 kids that attend high technology high school. And they hire a very small van and still able to provide door-to-door transportation for these only 4 kids to school. And to my knowledge, I have not heard anything like this in other townships. So why don't we look at what others are doing to see whether we can find a good solution? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Hold on. And can you come and speak on her behalf? Hold on, let me put her on speaker.
Come on.
Can you just put her on the mic?
They don't want to wait 9 minutes. Okay. Yes, yes.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak while she's coming?
Elizabeth, I'll have just a comment. So a few of us have been on this board a bunch of years. I mean, Joe's probably close to 10 years. I'm probably close to 10 years. And I can say, thankfully, every year I know Mr. Patrizzo and Lara Carducci, who head the transportation department, every year around in July, August, they put out the route for bid. And what we understand is, yes, about more than before we were on the board, Homedale decided we weren't in the transportation business and did get rid of all their buses. Obviously, there was a savings there. It was also, okay, we're here to educate students, not drive students around. So I sort of understand that. It's obviously having some kids in the high school now. But I know every year, for the most part, you have Shamrock, Helfrich, and Lori are the 3 bus companies. And I forget the 4th company. And we can't make the bus companies bid on these routes. So what happens is Lara Carducci in a business office, they package the routes together and they have single tier, double tier, and triple tier routes. Obviously, triple tiers hitting 3 schools, the most profitable for the bus companies because that's why they're in business. Single tiers are harder. And obviously students that go to Mass, that go to high tech and go to biotech, those are less attractive. Like I remember in the audience a couple of years ago, we had a bunch of St. James and our Red Bank Catholic parents because we couldn't fill those routes. They've bid them multiple times. And I think Paul or Jess, after 3 times, I believe we can actually negotiate directly with the bus companies. And that even failed. And then the aid in lieu, I think, is still $1,000 a year. So if you don't get a ride to school, you get $1,000, which is a joke because obviously $1,000 is, it's so out of whack. And that's obviously a Trenton problem. But I know I can feel, I empathize in a big way. And I'm hoping maybe at the last board meeting in August in a couple of weeks, maybe we could have Lara here and she could sort of explain the process of what she's done. Because I know it's on record of when we got the public bids and which companies bid it, which didn't, and what the action she's taken. Because I know she's very, very, how would you say, she cares. She absolutely cares. And she wants all your kids to get rides to school. And a lot of times because of the timing of the summer, those routes don't get bid on until July after the school's over. They have to publicly advertise it for the 10 days, whatever it is. Then if companies don't bid on it, we put it out for bid again. And then we try to repackage it. Okay, let's give them a healthy route that we know they're going to bid, and then try to throw another route in there just so they can grab those. So, I mean, maybe she can explain sort of how we did that this year. I mean, obviously we don't see the private Red Bank Catholic, so we must have filled those routes, I guess, okay at this point. I mean, that would be good to know. But I knew there was a whole process, and unfortunately, I guess the point is we're sort of stuck in terms of if they don't bid the route, we can't make them take it. And that becomes absolutely a problem, going all the way out to the Sandy Hook, we can't, what do you do? Especially if you have 2 working parents and all that. So I would like if Lara could come to the next meeting, that would be a request, or if that's possible.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Keskin, would you like to say something on behalf of the administration?
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. And thank you to all folks who came out tonight and spoke. I have to acknowledge publicly that, this process has not been great. And I want to thank you for your time. By the same token, I want to ask your pardon for having to take your time to come here and advocate. I think the relatively late nature with which you were provided the information, without a lot of clarification or opportunity for questions in advance, we need to be better than that. And I own that because ultimately everything that happens here falls under my purview. I'd also like to apologize that, under my watch, we released a plan, if you will, that had some significant holes. We can call it illegality. I think the interesting thing is we've done some research with the county, is that there isn't really any regulation that specifically speaks to vocational schools. The 2.5 mile number that's been put out there is really distance to the school that's used. That being said, in the absence of any clear legal guidelines, if we use conventional wisdom, I would agree with you that we can apply that 2.5 mile number to the bus stop itself as opposed to the school, because obviously they're not able to walk to the school. What we've been doing in the wake of the advocacy that we've received from parents is looking at additional options, trying to get additional stops. And what I can guarantee you, and we are prepared as early as tomorrow to send out some additional communication, is that no student that attends a vocational school will have a bus stop that is more than 2.5 miles from their house, and no student will be asked to traverse on foot a roadway or a thoroughfare, if you will, that's hazardous. So those 2 things I can promise you. I think what I would ask, in terms of whether for young folks who are here tonight or parents as you speak with your kids, is to understand that, yes, the world that we live in now and the circumstances and conditions we're managing are very different, right? And so while we always strive for the ideal, the circumstances don't always necessarily allow us to achieve that. That doesn't mean we shouldn't strive for it. But we can't always necessarily achieve the ideal, particularly when, as Mr. Reddy refers to, that there are circumstances and that are conditions that are out of our control. But certainly no student that attends a vocational school should be asked to really do anything that we wouldn't ask one of our own students that are attending our schools to do. We have gone back to the drawing board, and we're going to put out a revised plan that I think will certainly represent an improvement. Whether or not it ticks all the boxes for all here presently, I can't speak to that. What I can tell you is it certainly won't be illegal. Bottom line is that plan should not have been put out if it were not. And I have to acknowledge that and apologize that happened. And that's all I have, Madam President.
Board
Thank you very
President,
much.
I have a question when there's time to Dr. Cascone, Terrence Wall.
Okay, Terrence.
Just brief question, Dr. Cascone, under the local public contracts law that drives these transportation contracts, is there an exception? We had some commentary this evening of health and safety, personal safety issues. Would that create any exigency for an emergency contract to be awarded so we can solicit a vendor, engage in a contract and ratify it subsequent to the award? So we could address this issue before school starts?
Just to clarify what you mean by the health piece, are we talking about a student who might have physical limitations, or are we just talking about the hazardousness of the route, of the walking route itself?
The exception to the local public contracts law that allows school districts to engage in a contract with a vendor through a non-traditional bidding process to expedite this issue so we can have the problem solved before school starts based on life, health, and safety.
Okay, I'm going to have
I'm not sure I
Mr. Green.
understand the
I'm
question.
going to have Mr. Green respond to that.
Thank you, Board President.
There are circumstances where, when necessary in an emergency situation, a contract can be negotiated, but the requirement is that you must put it out for a bid before it hits the bid threshold. So that you cannot really avoid the bid if there is a true emergency situation. And it's not clear that, based on the circumstances we have here and what's being done to review it, that it would meet that requirement. But if it did, you would only be able to do that on a short-term basis. You'd still would have to go out to bid.
Oh, understood. Okay. Board President, we could check that. That'd be great to get an answer to that question.
Okay.
No, I don't.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cascone. Is your wife here? Anyone else like to speak? In the meantime, please come up and give us your name and address, and please speak.
I can see a few words while waiting for the VIP. David Liu, 21 Oakcrest Court. We've been living in Homedale for about 10 years. I'm glad to hear, you pay attention to the high tech. I'm also for the high tech issue. We have 2 kids going to high tech. I just want you to know, it's going to cost us additional 10, 15 minutes every morning. So the kids will pay the price, and we will pay the price. And I just want you to know, every decision you make have a consequence, and we're the victims here. So appreciate you looking into this issue, and hopefully you have a resolution soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please come up. And your name and address, please.
Mia Zhang, 9 Dandelion Line. My daughter goes to high tech high school. I just Googled, I think, you know how long it takes for kid, for adult work 2.5 miles. It's 1 hour, average speed. So my husband and I both work during the day, if you put a bus stop 2.5 miles away, I think it's going to create a lot of difficulty, or insurmountable difficult for us to, during the day, in the afternoon, like 2:30 or 3 o'clock, to pick up our daughter at the, designated bus stop. So, I think this, whatever solution you're considering, you have to consider this like if you go by 2.5 miles, and that's still going to create a lot of difficulties for a lot of families. The kids cannot walk like 1 hour to a bus stop. That's not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Cascone, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that again. We're sort of applying we're applying a standard. We're sort of applying an apple to orange standard in that, again, the 2.5 mile is based upon distance from the school. And we're applying that to the bus stop. And I think that's where it gets sort of gray, because there isn't really anything in our research and the regulation that speaks to, for a vocational student, what is the requirement of a bus stop, and the distance to the home. It's probably a hole in the regulation that probably should be fixed by the legislature in terms of, for a vocational student, what is the actual requirement of a public school district. Presently, there isn't anything in the regulation that speaks to that. We're using this 2.5 mile number, but I would agree with you. It is probably a somewhat unrealistic expectation that someone's going to walk 2.5 miles to a bus stop. There isn't any standard in the regulation that covers vocational students. I just want to clarify that. But I think we have some young folks here in the audience, so we're still open for public comment. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Would you like to come up and speak? Hi, can you give us your name and address, please?
I'm Dr. Yanis Maynard, and I live at, I was going to say 34 Ladwood, but I live at 5 Red Coach Lane. 34 Ladwood was our first house in Homedale. I've lived here for 14 years. That's probably longer than anywhere I've lived except for the town I've grown up. I've had 3 children in the Homedale school systems, none any longer. And this is the first time I'm in front of this board. I think what I'm trying to say with that statement is it takes a lot. We're busy. We're all busy. Everybody in this room is busy, but it takes a lot for me to get up and complain about something. Dr. Cascone, I heard on the way in your comment, and I want to actually applaud you for saying that perhaps some mistakes were made in this. In fact, my first interaction with you was just a few weeks after you started the job, when I called discussing some of the challenges we were having with my daughter getting her back and forth to Mass. And I have to say the problem was fixed within 2 hours. It was really impressive. And so what I just put out there, so in my role, I'm a cutaneous oncologist. I'm the director and oversee the entire clinical research enterprise at NYU of oncology. And what I'm trying to say with that statement is I oversee a team of 190 people. I do a lot of budgets. I do a lot of administration. Mistakes get made. Problems happen. I think what all of us here in the audience are here about is solutions, and that's what we'd like to hear. I think I'm willing to entertain the possibility that perhaps all of this was a bit of a happy accident, like we're describing. We're dealing with unprecedented issues with COVID-19. We're dealing with unprecedented challenges with transportation, with staffing, with so many different things in this world. But I also think it's important to understand that when there's chaos evolving like this, the most important thing leadership can do is get out in front of it, okay? And I think what me and my colleagues, neighbors, friends, a lot of whom are here tonight, would really like to see is just some transparent communication about how we got here, okay? What happened in the bidding process? We've all asked, many of us have asked for meetings, a meeting to go over this information. What happened with the bid? What were the bids? Follow the money. How is it flowing? Is it enough? Were the bids competitive? Were they not competitive? If not, why not? These are the things that I think we need to attack head on as a community. Transparency and trust. Those are the most important things that we can have in terms of communication with our students, with our families. And I do feel that, some of that has just been a little bit lost in this communication process. I'm confident hearing some of these discussions that we can regain that. But I do believe that I speak for many when I say that this has not been a process that has felt like it was well thought out, well organized, or really considered all the possibilities. I think you heard from my husband. I did not actually hear his piece when he spoke, so we'll find out about it later. Our daughter would have to walk 2.7 miles to get to her bus stop. Not a possibility. So again, you just saw me walk in tonight. This is when my day ends, okay? I'm not a martyr. I work these hours because I chose it. This is what my job requires. But I also have a child that I thought would be transported to school in a safe and efficient manner. That doesn't mean that we didn't think that she'd have to maybe walk to a bus stop, but to think that she'd have to walk 2.7 miles, that was not in the realm of possibility when we signed her up at MAST. And I wonder, and this is something that, again, I'd like to bury as my cynicism, that if perhaps, where this falls in the scheme of priorities to take care of this specific group of students. This is a high achieving group of students. They've been fine all their lives. They're always the ones that sort of make it through, right? And sometimes their needs may not be necessarily considered in light of the greater good. And trust me, I make decisions every day where you have to choose one interest over another. You need to balance. But I do want to put to all that the prioritization of the transportation for these kids, where was it? And how did this happen? That's what we want to know. And that's what we're asking. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Madam President, can I make a quick comment?
Yes, please do, Mike.
Okay, so first of all, I was on the board when we voted to eliminate our bus equipment and to go 100% in basically subcontracting out all our buses. I think it's important to keep in mind, though, at the time we did it, it was not a switch over from 100%. We had already got to about 70% of our buses being subcontracted at that point anyways. And in fact, it was that couple of years of experimenting which made us feel comfortable that we could go forward and outsource all of it. The thing that I just wanted to say was I've, having been on the board for as long as I have, I cannot remember a August and July in which we didn't have some group of parents come in unhappy about the busing situation. It's a thing that changes from year to year. So, I'm going to kind of put the Teflon shield a little bit in front of Laura, because I know that Laura does a very good job of trying to find that middle ground, try to solve the problem. And she has done a really good job of actually finding a solution. So while I realize it may feel a little tense time-wise, we're in the middle of August, I wouldn't give up yet that there isn't a solution that can come up that will allow for shorter walking distances for this group of kids. Just as last year we figured out how to get, one group of kids to get buses as we did the year before and the year before and the year before. I think at least 5 or 6 years of this. So I think what we need to do right now is, the message has been heard, and you're not, I know a lot of times you sit out there and you say, yeah, I'm taking the time to talk and these guys aren't listening to me. No, that's not the case. The board can do so much. We can ask the administration to see if they can come up with another solution, try to come up with the best solution possible. This is not to question that they hadn't already come up with some pretty good solutions or tried their best. But I wouldn't say that the school district is now just going to quit and basically say, well, that's just the way it's going to be. I have confidence that Scott and Laura will continue to look at our busing situation and come up with a solution that addresses the needs that have been raised today.
Thanks, Mike.
Optimism is a good approach to take. Trust me, I know that intimately.
Thank you very much. Dr. Cascone, would you like to add something?
Just a few concluding thoughts. So, since we've been receiving the outreach from parents amidst many other priorities, I can tell you that this has been at the top of the list. And I have asked questions and I have inquired. But I can tell you that after hearing the parents tonight and student, I'm going to go back to the drawing board and ask more questions and ask tougher questions, because I really want to be able to, and next time there's a message that goes out to the community on this, it will be from me. And it will be in the immediate term. I want to be able to say, and with complete confidence, unconditional confidence, that we've looked at every option. I also heard the request for transparency and details, and you're going to get those as well. Whatever process we followed, with every nuance of that process, you'll have that information. You'll understand what the process was that we went through. Now, I can't promise you that after doing both of those things, that the end game is going to be exactly what you're looking for. I can't necessarily promise you that. But what I can promise you is whatever due diligence has not been exercised to date, whatever inefficiencies or inadequacies there were in communication, those will be fixed immediately. So I appreciate it. The feedback was definitely impactful and has made an impression and has definitely increased my level of priority. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cascone. Okay, let's move on. We're not having executive session, so can I have a show of hands for, I mean, a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion, second.
A show of hands. Thank you. Have a nice evening.